The season 2 opens in a busy restaurant, and we see a woman walking up and down, eager to satisfy all of her customers. When she stops at a particular table to take their order, she sees a man that she clearly knows, but she tries not to give out any signs. She gives them 2 menus and then walks away. When the night is almost over, the man approaches her and says he is sorry and he would never have come if he knew she works here. The waitress tells him his son needs a surgery, but is not talking about the son she saw on the table, rather their own son, and the surgery is going to cost a lot. She blames the man he doesn't care about his own son and never pays for anything when it comes to his needs. We see her son as well when she returns home, but she also gets a quick visit by her ex's new wife, who tells her that her husband told her everything and she is not going to get a penny from them. Right next, we are taken to a shelter and a voice narrates that even if the end of the world is near, that's not an excuse for him to not brush his teeth. She narrates about the people's routine in the shelter, where they start with a breakfast and then they do some exercise. Average people also have to learn how the generators work because they are pretty useful, since they keep the temperature down and provide them with light from that day when the sun went dark. When the narration is over, we see the waitress we saw earlier. Zara and her son Dominic are part of this little community inside the shelter. Suddenly, a fire starts at the shelter storage and most of the food they had available vanishes, which results in everybody blaming everybody. The colonel, who is in command in his shelter, says that a team has to travel to Norway and get some supplies from an underground base. As the story unfolds, we see that the military is in control of all decisions taken in the shelter, and that the sun is so radioactive that destroys almost all forms of life, making even the food lose its nutritional value. We also get to meet some of the characters, one of them being Horst, a scientist who catches rats in order to let them out in the radiation under some boxes covered with various material, so he could determine if there is any material that can protect them from radiation. Unfortunately, all of the rats end up dead for now. Young Dominic helps Horst catch rats, even though his mother doesn't want him to do so. One night, he gets out of bed and goes after a rat. Zara understands that her son is up and she runs after him, but they accidentally get trapped into the room containing the generator. The door is locked and they can't get out, and Sylvie tells them to turn the generator off so it doesn't kill them. However, that causes the heat to go up, and a group departs for the airbase in order to get a flamethrower to open the door, save Zara and Dominic, and turn the generator back on before everyone dies from extreme hot temperature. Later, Jacob, Sylvie, and the colonel reach the airbase, but they see something they didn't expect, a destroyed airbase, which makes the colonel comment that the sun couldn't have made this happen and only a missile could have caused that kind of damage. In another backstory scene, we see the woman who assists Horst in his experiments, Laura, being in a first aid lesson, trying to perform CPR on a mannequin doll while the man who is in the same team as she tries to ask her out on a date. Even though she tells him to concentrate on their task, the man jokes around and tells her that she doesn't want to go out with him because he is from Morocco. Eventually, they go on that date, but Laura's dad intervenes and takes her out of there, saying that she has shamed her family. The film cuts back to the shelter where everyone is trying to think of a solution to get Zara and Dominic out of the trap door. The door is still holding strong while the colonel takes the other 2 of the group back at the base's gate so they can look for some tools there and maybe find something useful to get past the metal door. The colonel comments that they have to hurry up and travel to Norway because the destroyed airbase can't be a coincidence, and he hypothesizes that the Russians might be the ones who attack their base so they can get in Norway first and collect the supplies. Meanwhile, back inside the generator room, Zara tells her son that she is going to get them out of there and starts kicking on an air pipe, eventually breaking it down. She tries to get Dominic to climb through it first, but he falls onto her and they both end up falling on the floor. The colonel spots the dead body of a military major who everybody considers a disgusting person, being tied up in handcuffs, and he thinks Sylvie was the one responsible for his death. Jacob tells him to let her alone because nobody liked the major anyway. 2 soldiers, Felipe and Heermans, are tired of waiting and they grab their guns, threatening everyone that they will start killing Zara's friends if she doesn't turn the generator back on. The colonel returns in the base and the soldiers get distracted, which gives Ayaz an opening to attack both of them. Some bullets fly around and the colonel gets killed accidentally while inside the generator room. Zara and Dominic have no other options left since they know they are going to die because Sylvie and the rest found no tools that can crack the door open. While Zara turns the generator back on and Ayaz cries for their loss, Felipe and Heermans say they will get revenge on the civilians for killing the colonel. In the next scene, Sylvie gets a moment alone with Jacob and tells him why she was forced to tie the major up and leave him for dead, which makes perfect sense to Jacob, and tells her she doesn't have to explain herself to him. But in the meantime, Felipe finds a USB in the colonel's jacket and, alongside with Heermans, they watch the video footage of Sylvie handcuffing the major, saying that they are going to get some payback. In a flashback, Ainz, who returns in her hometown and her mother picks her up with a car, commenting that she got some weight on, which is a very good thing. When Ainz meets her father, he tells her he doesn't want her to meet that guy she used to date because he is merely responsible for what happened to her. The scene cuts to the shelter where Ainz is cooking some food with Heermans while listening to music, and they accidentally start the fire which burned most of their food supplies. A group of people has gathered outside the shelter at night, and they are trying to decide who will go to the nearest airports to look for planes and fly to Norway if they really find one. Felipe says Sylvie should stay back because she is the leader of the civilians and they listen to her. Before they depart, they arrange a mini funeral ceremony for Zara, and Dominic and old man Rick says some words about them. Some of the civilians depart and start looking for a plane, while Sylvie confronts Felipe and tells him to take his stuff out of the colonel's empty room so Ayaz can sleep there when he returns. Meanwhile, Horst is having a little romance going on with Laura, who confronts him and tells him she has noticed his absurd behavior and asks him why is that happening. Horst says he is in love with her, but he knows she is in love with Ayaz and walks away. The team which departed from the shelter visits an airbase, but they find no operable planes, so they have to keep looking. Luckily, they visit another airbase and they are able to find a plane which has fuel and is able to carry them to Norway and back. Back in the shelter, Laura visits Horst in his little lab and tells him he was wrong about her and that she is not in love with Ayaz but with him. They almost kiss, but Felipe interrupts them and says there is an emergency. Sometime later, Sylvie is outside with Ainz and the latter shares her story and reveals she had a problem with eating back in the day, which had resulted in her losing weight and being unable to gain it back. The two of them are also called in the control room, where Felipe tells Sylvie that they all know what she did and they are going to put her on trial. The pilots are flying the planes and they call Ayaz in the cabin, asking him what they should do if the Russians are already there, and they refuse to share the seeds with them. Ayaz says they will be fine as long as the Russians are less than 17 people, because that's how many bullets his pistol's loaded with. Back in the shelter, the soldiers are interrogating the remaining civilians. Laura tells them she has no idea about the incident with Sylvie. Horst says that the video footage lacks context because they can't hear any audio and maybe something more was going on. Subscribe and hit that like button to help our channel grow. Turn the notifications on so you won't miss any of our new videos. Thanks for watching.